back to another episode with the Modern Framily, where we talk about all things friends, marriage, parenting, family, everything in between. This is going to be a really special podcast episode. It's going to be hard to tell what is our emotions and what's just us being delirious, because right now it is 10:30 p.m. We've been recording all of these episodes for this season for how many hours? What is it? 15?
We've been here since
since 7 a.m. and it's 10:30 p.m. And so we're feeling good, but this is our last one of the day, and I really do think it's going to be the best one. It's going to be really special. And if you're listening, this is going to be an episode about grief, and tragedy and heartache and all those different things. Because the reality of being friends and friends that turn into family is you don't get to pick and choose what you walk through with people that you have let into your life. And so it really is like the good, bad, and the ugly. And we have us four sitting at the table, not because, everyone in our group, everyone in life has been through something extremely hard. But when I was thinking about our episodes and just who I wanted to have this conversation with, you guys were people that kind of came to my mind. I did want it to feel a little bit more intimate. We've done a lot of 11 people episodes, 22 people episodes, and just wanted this to be a little bit more of a intimate conversation. And so I'm really, really excited, and I'm just thankful for you guys and how you've handled grief. And so I think what we should do is just kind of jump right in. And specifically what we're going to talk about our stories and grief and our grieving processes, but then we're going to just kind of wrap up with how to specifically be a friend to your grieving friend, because, and we're not going to have really an answer at all, because there is no perfect formula. It's so case by case. But we are going to be able just to talk about our personal experiences and what we have processed of what worked and what didn't, and what we needed and didn't know we needed, and all the different things. So I guess I'll kick us off, and I'll be pretty brief. I am on year 10 since my dad died. And so I don't know if there's a thing out there called the Dead Dad Club, and just people that are part of it get it. And I became a part of it on August 5th in 2015. My dad was 46, and he was diagnosed with liver cancer. And so I was 21, I believe, in college, which is a very inconvenient season of one's life to go through something really hard. And obviously, me and my dad were really close. I was very fortunate. He was a pastor. He was an amazing, amazing man. He was full of life. Addie, you got to know him really well.
It's amazing.
Yeah, alongside of a lot of our community in college. He was always towards the end of his life, he was always visiting us, always with us. And the doctor told him that he had 7 months to live, but he ended up living for 10. And I could go into the details obviously, but it was a crazy experience watching the strongest man in my life fade away.
Yeah.
There was I think there's a lot of tragedy that's very sudden. You hear about car wrecks, and I can't imagine boom, someone's just gone. Nothing, some completely unexpected. But then ours was a different type of hard, where just it's just this slow fade, and you almost just have to watch this person that you love so much, just you don't even recognize them by the end of it. And so that's my one of my hard things, but that's definitely what I grieve the most. So little context to you two, Jackson, Addie are siblings. So they're going to kind of share their story together. So go ahead, take it away.
I'll let you go first. Unless you want me to go first, I will.
I would love for you to go first and I'll add to it.
Okay, so first of all, Addie Jane and I are 18 months apart. So in high school, Addie Jane and I kind of ran in the same friend group. And so we've been very close from really probably middle school to high school on. Our story of grief really started probably 4 years ago. before my mom actually passed. We just had to watch her essentially as grown adults now. You're out of your parents' house. But as kids, she was someone that for us was like she was really kind of the rock of our family. She was definitely the spiritual rock of our family in many ways. Like when I think about my mom growing up, I think about her as like the consistent, steady person that was always there. She was always the parent that you could go to about anything. She was the second mom to many of our friends. Like since we were in the same friend group growing up and in Brownwood, where we graduated from, everyone there, all our friends, we were wild and crazy, not getting in trouble, but just like the funnest, cleanest, wild and crazy ever. So we'd always come to our house. It was like our hangout spot. My dad would be fast asleep upstairs. My mom would be right there in the thick of it. It's like hanging out, playing games, making everybody coffee at like 12 a.m.
Sharon.
She was a good time.
She would have monkey bread in the morning, which is like most people probably know. Some people don't know, but it's the best like cinnamon bread you could have. She'd make that for all of our friends. So that was kind of like, before I left for college, that's what I knew. And that was mom to me, was like a very comforting, familiar presence in my life, someone that was extremely nurturing, someone that had devoted much of her existence in life to basically making sure that she was always there for us and taking care of us and being a consistent presence for anyone that we cared about. She just cared so much for us, built us up, and really is the first person that or when I think of the first kind of presence or older person in my life to like really teach us about the Lord, it was her. And so, you start to become an adult, you get out of the house, you go to college, and that relationship starts to change a little bit with your parents as you leave, because now you're on your own. But there were times in college for me, and I had a chance to play college football, which really all that means for me is that I was busy all the time. I didn't really have time to just sit there and do anything that I wanted. So when I'm playing football, and now I've also got to balance grades, there would be times that I would like wait till the last minute to do my stuff. Mom would always be like, "Oh, Jack."
She had a thick Southern accent.
She's from West Texas.
Yeah.
And one time I called home and I was stressing out. I was like, "Mom, I got this freaking big project that's due tomorrow." And I was like, "I haven't started on it at all." And she's like, "I just want you to know this." She's like, "You just got to remember this one saying, inch by inch, life's a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard." And I was like, "Can you expand on that a little bit?"
What's that mean?
She did. It's basically like, hey, if you take care of things little by little, just do a little bit at a time, take care of it. By the end, you won't have this Goliath of a thing to take care of. You won't have this monstrosity of this looming thing that's left. Inch by inch, life's a cinch. Take care of it little by little. It's like reading a book. If you had to read it all in one day, it'd be overwhelming. But if you read one chapter a day, it's manageable. So I was like, man,
that's deep.
Yeah.
That's good.
So that always stuck with me. That always stuck with me. And then from a more like serious side, she was the kind of person that she would confide in us at times about things. Like, she was very vulnerable with us, and if we were to ask her anything, she would have told us. There were things, you try to protect your kids from, I'm sure.
Totally.
Your kids don't need to know every little thing about your life, every little mistake probably, but letting them know that you're human and that you have messed up, and you're not perfect. I think it's important. And she did a very good job of that with us. And so, as we become adults and we start getting married and having kids and all that, she was right there, fired up about all of that stage of life. And then she started, after she had grandkids, she started and I know Addie's got to tell her story too, so
Go for it.
I don't want to, some of this may be overlap, but
you're good.
But basically, she was a grandmother to her first two oldest grandkids, one of them mine, Stone, who's now almost 9, and then Mia, who's just a couple months older than Stone.
Which is y'all's
sister. That's our older sister's little girl. Yeah, that's our older sister's little girl. And And so my mom, she would just burn up the road from Abilene back to Austin, or, wherever they were living at the time, Belton back to, Austin, because she was just trying to be wherever their grandkids were. Like, she loved it. They called her Honey. And so she was like the most incredible grandmother ever, super involved, was just down on their level all the time. Like, if you walked in, she'd be like in the little toy car with them, like she was that kind of grandmother.
Yeah.
Where she was like right there, in the action with them, where they felt like, oh, like she's here with me. Like, I got another playmate down here. She's not just like watching me, like she's playing with me. And that was very special, to see the grandmother do that. And that's what I remember about her as our mom too. Like, she did the same thing with us as kids. And that's why I have such fond memories probably of her as a kid, because she was like extremely intentional with us in every way. And so then we started facing some headwinds, and she started having, basically some kind of like medical stuff going on, or so we thought. So she started complaining of like, having fluid in her head or fluid in her neck, just some kind of very strange symptoms that for us, we were kind of like, what the heck? What is this? I have no idea what you're talking about. Well, I remember one day, I got called. My dad's like, hey, we're taking your mom to the emergency room. And so I'm like, is this, like, what's going on? He's like, you need to get here. So I drive to the emergency room, and we're in there, and she's like holding my hand. She's like tearing up. She like thinks she's about to die. And she whispered to me, she's like, said something like, she said something along the lines of like, if I don't make it, I love you, or something like that. And then she also made a comment about like, tell them this was real. Something along the lines of like, I think she could tell that they didn't believe what she was telling them about how she felt. And so the doctor came in, and he started saying, she came in with this and this and this. We've done scans on all these things, and we just like, there's nothing there. We told her like, Sharon, we don't see anything. And he was like, have you guys like thought at all about that some of this could be like mental? And I was ticked. So how are you going to sit here and tell me about this, my mom, tell me that like she's making this stuff up, this person that like raised me, who I know way better than you do, because you've only known her for 3 hours,
right?
And so it was kind of the first time that I was like, what in the world? And I started to think about that. Like, it stuck with me. Like, there's got to be something to this if nothing showed up on the scan. So the series of like the next 2 years was very painful, because what happened was she started going down this path more and more and more. And it's this. And so she'd go into the doctor. She's draining money, going to see all these doctors, and they're all saying the same thing. Sorry, Sharon, we don't see anything. And so she stops wanting to come around the kids and everyone else, not because she doesn't want to, but because she feels like she's going to be a drag to everyone else. Or she feels like she can't show up and be like what everyone else needs her to be, essentially. So she stayed back. She also was like really tired and really, she didn't feel great either. But a lot of it was like, I can't be what I know everyone needs me to be, so I'm just going to like sit in the shadows over here like by myself, basically, take care of myself. And so I had numerous conversations with her as a son about like, Mom, I don't care about that. Like, we just need you here. Your grandkids need you. They miss you. And she'd be like, I know, but then it just got worse and worse and worse. And I'm fixing to let Addie take this next part, but basically, there's a point where my younger sister, Addie Jane, and my older brother had to intervene on her behalf, because had they not, she probably wouldn't have even lasted as long as she did. So I'll let Addie Jane kind of take that, and then I do want to circle back kind of as she's finishing on some of that.
So just to make sure so I'm assuming along the way, because at first it sounds like you were upset with the doctors for assuming that it was something with mental health.
Right.
Had you now kind of come to grips that it was something involving mental health?
Yes.
Okay.
So this at a certain amount of time, you hear enough doctors say it. I really only needed 2 to tell me.
Yeah.
Once the first one told me, I was like, no. The next one told me, I was like, all right.
Yeah. Because I think mental health is something that it is beginning to be talked about more, but I do think a lot of people are still so unaware of its effects. So I just want to make sure that people are understanding now that you are acknowledging that.
We all, at this point, we knew that something was
Yeah.
not right mentally.
Okay.
At this point, the only official diagnosis that she had from a doctor was delusional psychosis. And that to her was devastating. And so she got that diagnosis after the first doctor that she went to, which is why she kept going to doctors after that. Because she's like, I'm not making this up. I need another answer. I'm not making it up. And it just led to a bunch of the same answers of, hey, we're so sorry, but you need to go see a psychiatrist. Like, there's nothing physically wrong with you. And so, yeah, I'll kind of pick up where you left off and hope I can make it through it.
If you need me to
no, it's
take
okay.
it, I can.
No, I got this.
She experienced a lot of this firsthand. From this point on, much of this stuff was firsthand experience with Addie Jane and my mom, which I had secondhand experience through Addie Jane, basically giving us updates. So she was firsthand, which may be more tough, but she can tell this stuff probably a little bit better than I can.
Yeah. My mom and I were really close, like talked multiple times a day. At this point, my son, Charlie, my oldest, was 5 months old. So at that point, she was already sick when he was born. And I noticed her starting to pull away a lot. And finally, my dad called me and was like, I need your help. Like, I need you to come over here. I need you to talk to her. And that was the first time I had seen her in, I think, 3 weeks or something, which is like, was unheard of for us. And she was talking out of her mind. There's no other way I know how to describe it except she was out of it. She was not my mom. I was looking at my mom, but nothing I was hearing or seeing was her. It was like she was gone. And was just saying some things that were very disturbing. And I called my oldest brother, Jordan, and I just said, hey, like, it's time that she's scaring me and we need to do something about it. I don't think we realized the extent. My dad, I think, was protecting her, protecting us from her, that first bit, where I don't think we realized the gravity of it and the things that he was having to see every day. So, yeah, we found a place to take her in Florida, and we didn't really give her the option to go, because when we did talk to her about it, it was a hard no, I'm not going. But we just knew if she stayed, that, like, I was going by and doing well checks on her just to make sure, like, I wouldn't even go inside. I would, like, go look in her windows just to make sure I could see her, like, moving around, make sure she was good if my dad wasn't there. And so, yeah, I went to pick her up. I packed her stuff for her because she wouldn't pack. She didn't want to go. And so I went and packed her stuff for her and made sure I had all of her medicine and stuff like that. And my brother and I took her. Well, I will say on the way there, I think was the first time that I was legitimately like, am I ever getting my mom back? Because she was just saying these crazy things. And I had to pull over on the way to the airport and make her take her medicine because I was afraid. It was to the point I was afraid she was like gonna like try to like pull the steering wheel to like pull the car over for us to not go. Like, she was so adamant about not going to the treatment place. And it was like more of a retreat center. I think she was unfamiliar with it, but it was for mental health. Another thing about our mom is that she was anorexic from the time before I was born. I think before our oldest brothers, she had been through a lot of traumatic things in her life. And that was something that she felt like, so many things are out of control, and this is the one thing I have control over, is what I can eat or what I don't eat. Like, I'm in charge of that. And so this is a place that was supposed to help her, with both of those. And so we took her to the facility. She was supposed to be there for 2 weeks. We had to give her more medicine whenever we got to the other airport. we were trying to get our rental car and she wouldn't go and had a full-blown panic attack in the airport, and we had to carry her to the car, and had to give her medicine. And on the way there, I'll never forget the conversations we had with her, just telling her over and over the gospel. And my mom had made some mistakes in her life that had just come to light, and that along with her mental health was like basically just saying she wasn't worthy of life. She wasn't worthy of forgiveness. And so the whole way we're just preaching the gospel to her over and over and over, just hoping that maybe it'll stick. So we dropped her off. She was supposed to stay 2 weeks. I got a knock on my door a week later, and it was my mom. She was back. She somehow, that was during COVID too. And so they have very strict policies. They were checking her like oxygen levels and stuff, and they were kind of off. And so they were going to send her to the hospital there. And if she tested positive for COVID, she was like out of the program and was going to have to find her own way home. And so she just decided, okay, I'm just going to leave on my own terms then. I feel better now. They got her medicine regulated. She was okay. I thought she was okay. So she showed up at my door a week early, and she's like, please don't be mad at me. But it was weird. It was like I was talking to my mom again. So I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, she was
come
like,
in.
Totally normal. It was the strangest thing.
Really?
Yeah.
It was
very normal.
Yeah, it was really odd. And for a couple of months, it was like that. Then she got in contact with a functional practitioner, very unwise one. She was so desperate. She was still having that feeling that she would say in her head, like, my head's filling with fluid. I have headaches all the time. And so she was so desperate because all of the conventional doctors would not give her the answers that she wanted. And so she was just desperately searching for them anywhere else. And she got some really unwise counsel from a functional practitioner and was doing these crazy things to try to get well. And I think it made her worse. They had her get off of her medication. And I think that's when the downhill again started for her. So at this time, she was living between my house and my sister's house. And it was kind of like she would stay at my house until I couldn't handle it anymore because it was heavy all the time. And I was also pregnant with my daughter by this point. And so then she would go to my sister's house, same thing. She would stay there until she just couldn't do it anymore. It was just back and forth all the time. And so then she was staying with my sister at her house and had an episode where she scared my sister by the things that she was saying. And my sister had to call the police to come pick her up. And they came and got her. She tried to keep her kids from seeing it, but they did. And they took her to a mental health hospital. And my sister said that when she was there, she could just see her, like, she had to drop her off, which is, I think, the little moments like that are like some of the most painful because you feel like you're abandoning them, even though you feel like what you're doing is loving at the time. But she described it as like she's sitting behind this glass like a little lost puppy dog. It was almost like she had reverted back to being a child and like was curled up in a ball, and my sister just had to leave. So she was there for 2 weeks, and the main thing for them there was to get her medicine regulated and also to get her to eat. But I want to remind you, she had an eating disorder. And so she's at this place. She could have gotten out probably in 3 days, but they were feeding her corn dogs and sloppy joes, and she's like a health nut. And Frito pie. And yeah. And so she had a really hard time at that place. And finally, I think she realized, if I eat this junk, they'll let me out of here. So they got her on a lot of medication. They didn't just get her medicine right.
She was over-medicated.
She was over-medicated. They made her a zombie. And so we did not feel comfortable. That's not long-term care. So we didn't feel comfortable with her coming home to any of us at that point. And so we had to find another place for her to go that was more of like not a long-term treatment center, but longer term. And it was supposed to treat the eating disorder with the mental health stuff at the same time. So we sent her there, and, honestly, there was never a moment that she was there that I thought we're ever getting our mom back. It was kind of the moment that we took her to Florida that first time, and I saw her like that. It scared me so bad that I just knew God started to prepare my heart to lose her during that time. And actually, remember our community group was meeting on Zoom at that time. And I told them, I was like, I think God's preparing my heart in one way or another to lose my mom, whether she really is sick, like she says that she is, like physically, or she's going to starve herself and that's the way that she passes, or something else bad is going to happen. So she's at this facility. They just don't really get anywhere with her, but they can't keep her there forever. We're paying for her to be there. It's a lot of money. And they move her over to more of an independent living situation where she's cooking her own meals, like measuring, trying to get a calorie goal for the day and looking at jobs, which my mom hadn't worked. She was a stay-at-home mom. But looking for a place for her to live after that. And I think it was a lot for her to think about living independently after that. But she also did not want to be a burden on us. I know that. So one night, was actually really early morning, I think. She left that facility. Well, I guess rewind. I get a phone call from my sister about 7:30 in the morning. She said the facility can't find my mom. I'm like, what do you mean they can't find her? And she was like, I don't know. She missed her morning weigh-in, like her morning check-in. And so I'll call you back when I have more information. And so get a call a couple hours later and she's like, hey, they pinged her phone at the lake in do I say the town? In the town that she was in, which is about 9 miles away from the place where she was staying. And of course, in that moment, you're like, you automatically assume the worst. And I thought somebody had taken her and something had happened to her in that way. We found out later she left the facility because it was independent living, so she had more freedom. She left and just started walking. And we found out later that she had been complaining that she was having those headaches and stuff, and everybody was telling her, Sharon, that's just part of your like mental problems, like you're fine, nothing's really happening. So she took off walking. I think it was like 20 degrees that day. We found out that a man saw her walking in the freezing cold, stopped and picked her up. And he said, can I give you a ride somewhere, ma'am? I just want you to know I'm a Christian. Like, you're safe and I'll take you wherever you need to go. I just don't want you walking in the cold. And she said, can you take me to the hospital? I'm really sick. And he said, yeah, sure. I'll take you wherever you want to go. So we took her to the hospital, dropped her off at the entrance, and left. There's no record of her ever going into the hospital, but there's a lake right across the street from the hospital, right across the highway. And long story short, we get a call. They found her body in the lake. And it's hard because there was no note. There was no way of us knowing if that was what she had planned on doing that day. For sure, if she would have walked the whole way, it would have been daylight at that point. That would have been very surprising to me if she would have just walked in the water. And so the way they described it and what the autopsy report said was that she literally just walked in the water, and it was so cold. She got down on her knees and she basically, her body stopped functioning. It was like she died of hypothermia. And it's just a while. I think, first of all, that's the first time I've told that story without crying. But when you think back to the mom that Jackson described her as, and then you think about the way that her life ended, you're just like, how in the world did we get there? How do we get to that point? There's so many unanswered questions, about the facility that she was at. How in the world was she able to just walk out her door without anybody knowing for hours? Why did she not walk into that hospital? Was her intention to do what she did? We don't know. There are a lot of answers that we won't get on this side of heaven. And we just have to make peace with that. And so, yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing. And you said you wanted to circle back?
Yeah. So that was jarring. The way that last couple of days shook out. It was very traumatic. I had a phone call with my best friend growing up the night before that. So the night before my mom died, which would have been the night that she started walking. Well, I guess probably the turn of the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This was a friend of mine that was my very best friend that I actually lived with for a time, like during part of a school year when I didn't know where my mom went, but she went up to go stay with her sister in Fort Worth because she was having like issues with eating disorder and stuff. And we were in like middle school. I didn't know. I was like, oh, sweet. I'm going to stay with my best friend for like a couple months. Little did I know why.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, that friend and I were like best buds. In fact, my brother-in-law, Aaron, was like, we were like the trifecta, like best friends, us three. I had a conversation with my buddy. He called me out of nowhere, and we usually talk like once a year. This is a very rare thing. But when we talk to each other, it's like we never.
Yeah, you pick up.
It's that kind of friend where you have so much history that when you pick up the phone, it's like I just talked to you yesterday. You know, that kind of deal. And so he's telling me, like he's telling me about his wife's cousin or somebody that was like pretty close to her that had just passed away, like pretty tragically from something brain related, and was kind of like confiding in me in that. And just like we started talking about like the brevity of life, you know, and how life is a vapor. And just like we got all in the weeds about just how life is not promised, you know, and this whole conversation that went on for like 2 hours, I'm pacing around the backyard. I remember looking up to the stars, like as I'm talking on the phone over and over and over. And I'm saying all these things, and now looking back, like very obviously when this happened, that conversation like prepared my heart for what was about to happen to my mom. You know, I was like in this place, this posture of heart where I was like, had just been prepped to like know what's the biblically how to respond in this moment, because I just reminded myself biblically of how that life is short and none of this stuff is promised. And, you know, like make what counts, what should count needs to count, make it matter in your life, you know? And the next morning, like when I get that call from my dad, I got that call from my dad about like, hey, they just pinged your mom's like phone. And then I got another call as I'm showing a ranch. I have clients in the truck, and my dad keeps calling me over and over, and I keep rejecting over and over. Finally, I pick up, and there's people in my truck. I'm like, Dad, I got to call you back. And he's crying. And he's like, I normally do pretty good with this, but that's grief. It's like, you think you're good, and then
you don't pick.
It's not linear. But anyways, he was like crying and was like, I got to talk to you, son. Like, no, I got to talk to you. And I just hung up on him. And they were like, hey, if you need to take that call, you can take that call. So I like got out of the truck. And he was like, I called Dad, and he was like, I'm so sorry, son. They just found your mom's clothes. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm like trying to keep it together. Hang up the phone, get back in the truck like nothing happened. Tried my best just to like keep it together. Rode around the ranch for another 30 minutes. Just pretending, you know? Drop him off, and I beeline it. I'm on my way there, and I call my buddy. I'm like, let me tell you about this. Like, you want to talk about like God being in charge of me and intentional. That conversation that we had last night was not for you, it was for me. Anyways, so I get to Abilene, my older sister and we're the only ones at the house. Everyone else is out with search and rescue at the lake. As soon as we pull up, we see the boat stop. And it was like, I knew. We pull up, they're like, we just found her. One of my very best friends calls me. Case McCoy was one of my very best friends from the time I was a kid. Played college football with him, and I just had this conversation with him like right after she died, just telling him like everything that happened is just very surreal. But anyways, some of these moments, like when my dad called me, it's just like her whole life and my whole experience with her is culminated in those words. Like, I'm so sorry, son. You know, like she made me who I was in so many ways. And she was our biggest advocate, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the hardest part about this for me has been losing that person for me that was my nurturer. You know, a mother and fathers have different roles, you know?
Right.
But for me, it's like I don't have that motherly figure in my life that I can call now that loves me no matter. I could have done anything. She wouldn't have cared. Oh, Jack, you know? So that part for me was very hard. And all our family came that day. We found out what after they found her body and all that. All of our like immediate family and my relatives on her side showed up, and my cousin was like, we already had to start talking about the funeral stuff, you know? I'm like, I'm not ready for this. She's like, do any of y'all want to talk? I'm like, why are we talking about this right now? And I'm like, no. And then we went home for a handful of days before the actual funeral, and I just felt God speak to me very loudly, not audibly, very loudly in my spirit. Like, I'm supposed to get up there and speak, and I'm supposed to tell everyone the gospel, you know? And like, what an opportunity to get up there when people know that you're hurt, you know, and to be able in that moment to stand and share the gospel. And so that's what I did. Me and my older sister, Shelby, that's what we did. And it was like, when I think about that day, her funeral day, in some ways, it's like, I don't have any sad memories about that day because, like, it was awesome. We had all kinds of people that came up to us and was just like, it was a very moving, powerful day to see someone that very obviously is going through something so painful to stand up there and share the gospel with everyone in a very real way of like, life is short. Like, we don't know if we have tomorrow. Don't wait. Like, if you're waiting to come to the Lord later in life, how arrogant of you to think that you've got tomorrow. We don't know. Today is the day of salvation. Today, live with conviction. Today, make your life matter for the Lord. Today, surrender yourself, submit yourself to the Lord, because you don't have tomorrow, you know? And so that was just a very powerful day. And I look back on that day like with it's light to me. Yeah. And our community in so many ways, just like they took our kids, they brought us meals, like it was crazy. What happened. It felt like that whole season, as tragic as it was, felt light because we had people carrying us.
That's good. We'll get to more of that.
Yeah. So
thank y'all. I thank y'all so much for sharing and trusting. I mean, strangers are going to be listening to this, and it's crazy. Just, I think a lot of people will feel comfort from like your tragedy because they'll know like they're not the only people. And I just want to say to both of you, and especially you, Addie, I didn't even know some of that. You know, we've been friends for over a decade, and I wasn't living near y'all when all this was going on. And I didn't even know some of the things that you were having to do. And, you know, no kid is meant to care for their parents in that way. They say no parent should see their kid, and I can't imagine, but it's also just as crazy to see a kid to take care of your parents and what that does to you. It can jack you up if you let it. And so thank y'all for sharing that. I want to transition to a harder story, but it has a really happy ending, and that's Miss Jean. who's something completely different. Like, that's what I love about like this episode. I do want to realize that, like, and that's also grief, is like when we go, it's like you can't just fit it in this pretty little box. So this might go a little long, which is okay. But tell us your recent, like, you're the one. Mine was 10 years ago. That was how long ago? 3 years ago. And this today.
Literally today. Yeah.
Today, which is crazy.
Yeah. It's crazy how God's timing is like, oh, you're getting released from the hospital on the day that we're sharing about our grief. And so, anyways, my grief is a lot different because I am not, fortunately, not part of, I did not lose a parent, but it happened to me as I became a parent. So I got pregnant with my daughter in January of 2024. And I want to preface that we had just moved to Austin in April of 2023 and had joined this community in June of 2024, and just was like really starting, when you join a community this big, you just really have to dive in, because it's just, you're either just like on the perimeter, or you really go dive in and you just really start to just invest and just do life with each other from the get-go. And, when we found out we were pregnant, I remember I had shared with the girls, and they had prayed over me even being like, my desire to be a mom. And everyone had just rejoiced with us when we had announced our pregnancy. I mean, I still remember announcing our pregnancy to y'all, as y'all were I think y'all were the first people who had found out that we got pregnant, because we knew if something were to occur, like, a miscarriage or something, we wanted to walk that with people. And so even before our parents, y'all knew. And so they had walked with us through our pregnancy. And, Nash was born on August 27, 2024. And 5 weeks later, she was diagnosed with leukemia. And it was kind of a crazy, kind of part leading up to that, because Addie's son had just went to the ER prior to Nash going to the ER. And they were there in the hospital for a few days. And because he had his own thing, and he was able to recover from a little infection that he had. And so it was just so fresh to us. And then I went to that morning on October 4th, Nash had woken up with she had a low-grade fever. And I am a doctor, and so I know that she was like 5 weeks. She, as a newborn, and it's a medical emergency if you have a fever, but she was just kind of outside of that time frame. But it was still something completely new, popped up out of nowhere. And so I had called our pediatrician's office at 8:30 and got scheduled for appointment at 10 that day. And then we went to the pediatrician, and she was completely normal. She had 100.1 temperature, and because they couldn't find anything going on with her, they were like, maybe she has a UTI. And it was a Friday, and so she had sent us to the emergency room, just so if she had a UTI, they get labs done pretty quickly, you would know before you left the ER. And so she sent us there, and our pediatric ER doctor was just like, hey, like, technically she's outside of the 30-day window. She is not technically febrile, because a fever is anything over 100.4. We could just monitor her and just kind of, trend down her fever, or we can just do a bunch of labs. And so we had some potential exposure to COVID, because my siblings were sick prior, and we had seen them the weekend prior. So we were just like, just do it. And I remember texting my community group because of Addie, and I was like, I thought it was so dumb in my mind. I was like, I shouldn't text them to pray over this. And I remember just being like, hey, can y'all pray for Nash? We're in the ER. Like, they're just kind of checking for things to make sure that, she had a fever, but we're just not trying to rule out all the other things. And they're like, of course, like, they immediately, of course, rallied around us. And they did lab work. COVID came back negative, flu came back negative, urine came back negative, but her CBC was like really wonky, and she was completely asymptomatic beside this low-grade fever. And so it was so wonky. She had no signs of showing any of those as a like systemic manifestation that they redrew the labs again. And I just remember John and I were sitting and we were like, and one of Kelsey's husband, Will, was like in the area and he like came and visited us in the ER for something we had thought was so simple. And he was just hanging out with John, and John and I, after Will left, John and I were just sitting and we're like, what are we going to do tonight for dinner? What movie are we going to watch? You know, all the things. And they came back and it was still the same result. And they were like, your lab results came back concerning for leukemia. And we were just like so shocked. I just remember texting the girls group and being like, they were like, what? And we were just all so like, It was so shocking. And it just happened very quickly. So we were seen, I think, at like kind of around 11:30 at the ER, and we were literally directly admitted into our children's hospital oncology unit before 5 that day. And it just happened. They did the blood work. They saw atypical cells on the blood smear. They sent us to the hospital. And at that time, we had to take an ambulance to get to the hospital because she was started on like antibiotics, fluids, all these things. And at that time, we were still hopeful that it wasn't the diagnosis. So we had thought we were going to go to the hospital and they were going to do another bone marrow biopsy. And then they were going to be like, just kidding, it's not leukemia. And we showed up to the hospital and there, our oncologist there that admitted us was like, no, she has leukemia. It just really depends on which one. And I just remember just being just so shocked and like devastated and heartbroken, just so many emotions going on at that time. Because, you know, I was newly postpartum and your first daughter gets diagnosed with leukemia. And it's actually, infantile leukemia is like so rare. Like they only had 180 cases. And I remember them saying they hadn't had an infant leukemia for over a year. And so she had like a white count of 60,000 and they were just going to wait. They had scheduled her for Sunday to get a bone marrow biopsy and to, you know, before they wanted to start her on chemotherapy. And because they wanted to see what her cells look like, what type of leukemia she had before they started her on a chemotherapy regimen. And literally, you know, she had that low-grade fever the next day on Saturday. She had went from her white count, jumped from 60,000 to 100,000 so quickly. And she started having, it was super symptomatic. She was just having high-grade fevers that they basically were like, she needs to start emergent chemo. And at that time, you know, on Friday, it was just so unexpected that we were going to stay in the hospital overnight. So I had John just grab like a couple of clothes, like a pair of pajamas and something to wear for the next day. So John and I actually had went home to like pack because they had told us that we were already going to be there for minimum of 30 days. And the second that we had told our community group, I remember getting like several $100s worth of DoorDash gift cards that was from our community group. And they sent over a PayPal too. That just like, it was just immediate. They were literally, how can we be hands and feet to Jean and John while we are going through something that is like unimaginable? And I know we'll touch on that in a little bit. But I remember John and I went home when, and my parents were at the hospital with my daughter when the doctors told them that they were going to start emergent chemo. And I remember I had gotten out of the shower and John was like, we need to go. Like, you don't even have time to pack. Like, we need to go to the hospital. They said that they're going to start emergent chemo. And I remember just like, I was like in a towel, like dropped to my knees, just like literally like crying out in despair. Like it was like so crazy. Like how I just really didn't think I was going to get to see my daughter alive or bring her home. And I remember we got in that car that day on our way home and I saw her car seat and we were just breaking down in tears. And the only thing that was just kind of keeping us going was, you know, our faith. My parents were really strong in their faith and they had just taught me so much about the importance of prayer. And we had been praying every step of this whole process already. And, you know, and then we were also just like, we were just playing this song,
this praise and worship song on repeat. And we came to the hospital, and it was just been like a whirlwind because of emotions. And I remember even like all the things that we had specifically prayed for, like we don't want it to be this type of cancer. We want it to be, we didn't want it to be we didn't want it to be AML. We wanted it to be ALL because AML was just a little bit more high risk, and she had AML. And I was literally like, oh my gosh, Lord, like, what are you doing? Like, and then it was just like one thing, like God, it just seemed like God was not answering certain prayers in the way that we wanted them to. Cause
can you talk about that? Like, I feel like that's really real. Like, cause especially someone I know who's not maybe a part of the faith.
Yeah.
Like that would be something I think people would argue, like, boom, why in the world would you trust that God? And so like, why did you?
I think it's because I've gone through other things in my life where I had to rely on my faith. And so I was diagnosed with epilepsy when I was in my third year of medical school. So that was around 2016. And so when you have a diagnosis yourself of something that you can't control, it really shook my faith a lot at that time too. And I think I remember that being a turning point in my faith where it was either I would be angry with God or I would literally try, like, just really set that foundation for my faith and like trust. I just remember, like, after I got diagnosed with epilepsy, I went to church the following day, and I was like, felt the urge to go to, those altar calls are like, oh, go to the altar call, they're going to pray for you. And I just felt drawn to this one lady, and but she was already praying for somebody else. So I was like, well, I can't go up there anymore. And it's always like, you don't ever want to go up for prayer. I don't know. I was always embarrassed about it, but I felt like God was like pulling me toward this one lady, and she had finished praying over this person in front of me, and they were still doing the altar call. And I was like, I guess God wants me to go up there and go to this one lady. So I go up to her, and it was crazy because she was like a nurse or something. She was a medical professional because she prayed so specifically over my epilepsy and just everything. Like, she was talking about neurons, like, and I was like, God, like, I know that you see me with this diagnosis. Like, it was just such an intimate answer in a prayer that I was like, this is like, God is real because he knows what I was going through, and he so intimately met me in a way, because I'm also a medical professional. So I'm like, wow, that's so crazy that the person that I felt drawn to, that God was calling me to pray over my epilepsy, is a medical professional. And I just felt like God had seen me in some of my darkest times before. So it wasn't even a question. I remember talking about this, that it wasn't even a question that I was going to trust God in this season. So
it's so true.
Mm-hmm.
Like, anyone who was watching, it was so true. I remember looking at Jenna, and like, there is like your whole life in like 24 hours. It was so quick, like, just like how fast in an instant your whole life changed. Expectations and then reality completely at odds. But I felt that from you, like, and I'm sure you even closer to that. It was like you never wavered. I really admired that.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's because of, if you've gone through trials and you know what is true and how God has walked you through those seasons, then you know that he will continue to do that and be faithful and good. And I think that just has resonated with so many people who kind of followed along with her story and just why they had continued. It's crazy because some of the things that I do social media on the side on top of being a dermatologist, and the amount of people when we had announced that she had leukemia, like, I mean, I had people from Australia, like China, like so many people were praying over Nash, and I had felt it in the hospital. I was like, God, I know that you healed my daughter in a weird way. And I remember being like, why did you give her AML? And which is the more higher prognosis. And I remember when finally we got the bone marrow biopsy back, and our oncologist, like, she had initially, before, when she knew that we had AML and we were just finding the genetic testing for it, she had sat us down and she was walking us through the prognosis and what the 5-year survival rate looked like. And that is just a heavy thing to go through as a parent, thinking that your 5-week-old is potentially never going to live past 5 years. And so I remember she just was so somber. And after we got our biopsy results back, I think it was 10 or 12 days after she got diagnosed, like, the AML genetics were favorable. Like, it was like it had such a good prognosis for her. And I was like, okay, God, like, thank you for answering that, even though AML was not what we wanted. At least, like, it's a good prognosis and it responds well to standard chemotherapy. And then we get, like, at the very end of your first round of chemo, we were there for 32 days in the hospital. They do another bone marrow biopsy to check if the first round of chemo worked. Because if it didn't work, you would basically just go straight to a bone marrow transplant. And she was in remission. And that was, like, another answered prayer to, like, that I had sent to our community group, to so many people. There was just so many people that rallied around our family and prayed over, like, things specifically. And I found that was so helpful to be like, hey, I need y'all to pray specifically for this. Because sometimes it's just, like, so vague and so hard to understand the nuances of it. And that I'm like, I need you to pray specifically for this. And God had answered those prayers so specifically. And I remember, like, being like, oh, ALL is a better prognosis because it's just more common. But then it turned out, like, the AML timing of everything, we only went through chemo for 5.5 months versus ALL treatment is usually about 2.5 years. And so, like, I can see hindsight, like, God didn't answer that AML prayer, or that ALL prayer, but he had something better in mind, because, like, we were able to be done with treatment in 5.5 months. And so, you know, we've had 5 rounds of intensive chemo, and those rounds were individually very hard. We were in the hospital for as short as 22 days, as long as 32 days, with only a few days in between. And so basically, you know, after the end of round 1, when she was in remission, basically we had to go through all the 5 rounds of chemo and to just complete out her treatment. And then we finished that today. And so there's a lot of things that happen in between.
Yes,
and she is officially cancer-free, which is very exciting. But I just...
do it. No. Yes, thank you. Yes.
But everything is still, like, I feel like it's just so new that I haven't even gone to the point of where I've processed kind of the grief that I've gone through too.
I can't imagine all this.
So, like, yeah, like, I feel like y'all have gone through that too, and I know that y'all are gonna help walk me through kind of this whole process post, like, because I was just in fight or flight mode, like, mom, survival, only worry about her. Like, I mean, there were days when I didn't even get out of my pajamas or wash my face, which is, like, so un-dermatologist of me. But because I was just only caring for her and, like, caring about her and just in the thick of it all, that I feel like now that I'm removed and, like, seeing it from what we've suffered through and gone through, like, I'm sure I'm going to grieve that process too, because I definitely grieve, like, the process of what motherhood would have looked like and my expectations for that, because obviously, like, the first 6 months, you know, we had spent 135 days in the hospital, and we calculated it today that it was like 71% of my daughter's life has lived in the hospital. And so it's just like, she didn't get that normal, and we didn't get that normal first 6 months of parenthood. And so we've definitely grieved a lot of that, and I'm sure we'll continue to grieve, but that's just kind of our story in a nutshell. And, you know, praise the Lord for his goodness and his faithfulness in answering prayers and her being cancer-free. So,
yeah,
man, I'm so happy. And it's so crazy, when we decided to do this, we had no idea that today, when we recorded, would be the day that y'all were discharged from the hospital and announced cancer-free. And, like, what freaking troopers to, like, to like go home and then like for y'all, like, she was here earlier. Like if you haven't seen our first episode, like she's in the first episode with your husband, Jonathan. And it's just so surreal. That was a month after we moved here.
Yeah.
So we really haven't known like y'all in our community. It's been so crazy. Like y'all have come when you can, but like I'm so excited. That's why I asked you before we recorded. I was like, so it's like, is it normal life now? Like basically I'm asking like, cause it's like, are we going to get to just see y'all now? And like, will she just get to be around and play? And I know that there are still things, but it's just so exciting for what's ahead.
It was so kind of weird because you leave the hospital and you're like, that's it. Like,
yeah,
we had like a little parade, which was amazing. Like, but it was literally like, okay, that's it. And they're like, we have an appointment to follow up with our oncologist in an outpatient setting. She had her central line removed. She's basically like, it's just so weird. Like I've not seen her not have a central line since October 6th. And so it's just like, yeah, I guess we do normal life. And I'm like, what? Like,
yeah,
okay. It's just like a weird 180, like so quick. Like you're in the weeds, like dealing with the side effects of chemo and waiting for her counts to recover. And then all of a sudden you're like,
coming to do a podcast.
Yeah.
Man, that's amazing. I'm going to call an audible for this episode. I know we were going to talk about how to be a good friend. I do think we've sprinkled that into our stories. I think I want to do another episode like later on that. I think like we talked about how season 1 was going to just be all about people knowing us and dynamics of our group. And I think we just needed to do that. I don't know. I just feel like we needed to share those stories in long form. And like, how are we going to shorten?
It's hard to shorten it.
Like, you guys tell us how.
And we did shorten it.
Yeah, that's what's so crazy. I could have taught.
I'm looking at you like, I know we're way past.
Yeah, and I was like, no, but it's okay. And it just makes me appreciate y'all so much more. And I think what I do want to first just like acknowledge is like what we did just do. And I think one of the greatest examples for anyone who's a friend of someone in grief, though, is listen. Yeah. That's like it's so healing. Like, I think people overthink it. Like, oh, I don't want to bring it up or I don't want to ask or whatever. And I would say for me, at least, like, I'm so thankful when someone cares and asks and then just listens. Mm-hmm. And like, you can tell they're doing it not to like truth bomb me or like, let me remind you of just trust God, man. You know, it's hard, but it's just like they just wanted to hear, and it's like it. And so I do think like that is something I will say as far as being a good friend. But I do think as we wrap up, let's maybe spend 5 minutes just in light of, because I bet this does trigger a lot of people's wounds with grief, and maybe they don't have people who will listen. Like maybe they don't have friends who know how to process or create such a vulnerable space for them to be honest. I guess let's just each go around and let's just answer this one question and then it could be done.
Okay.
What would you say, like, each of our things, like, what has it taught you, like, and created in you and like who you are today? Because I imagine, I don't know where you're at with it yet, but people, like, I've always said, like, if I could go back and change it, it's so weird. Like, I wouldn't, even though it's like, I long for my father so much, but that's what God does, is like, he makes a way, like, through all of that pain. So it's like, if you change it, that means that all the things that have happened because of it now change with it too. So it's like, are you sure you want to do that? And I'm like, no. Like, that's what's so weird about it. I don't want to change it. So I guess my question is like, what have these defining moments taught y'all, and like, what has it created in you today? What's different about you because of it?
I would say for me, the main thing is I've described it like this. Imagine this table right here. And because normal everyday life gets busy, we have things and real responsibilities, things like, imagine that as like newspapers or magazines that get like stacked up and stacked up and stacked up. And, you know, let's say that, like, you know, this right here is a picture of like Jesus or something like that. Like, our most important thing that we know is engraved in this table, and we can see it clear as day right here. But when everything gets piled on top, all of a sudden you can't see that thing that your life is built on. You can't see what that foundation is. And then tragedy strikes, and boom, it's all off the table, and you see it clear as day what it is, what's most important. It's so vividly clear, and it's right in your face. And the times before where you knew it was like important to you, now it's like, I have to cling to this because I know that life is short. And the things that I say I want to be, I need to be now. No more putting off. No more I'm gonna do. No more I'm gonna be. Now. Because all we have is now. And it's made me have a very clear picture of just purpose and living that out and reminding myself of that every single day. Like, living my life backwards, like I kind of said a little bit earlier. It's like I look at like the end of my life and who do I want to be? What has God called me in my life to be? What's the potential for my life? Not to go achieve things. What has God placed in me that I can do for his kingdom? And that those things I look at, I'm like, if our life is over, what am I going to say? Like, oh, I was a CEO of this job. Nobody cares about that crap. Like, if we're being honest, that stuff just doesn't matter. What matters very clearly is that I'm a son of God and that he loves me, and I can rest in that. And also that now I get to go share that with joy to the rest of the world, regardless of my circumstances. I know I have this one thing about me that nobody can take from me, no matter who passes in my life, no matter what tragedy may happen. I know I have that, and that's worth more than anything. And I picture that as like the man, it's like when he found the treasure hidden in the field. There's a scripture that talks about like a treasure that was hidden in a field. And when a man found it, he went and sold all his possessions, everything that he had, because what he found in that field, he knew was worth everything. And that's how it is. Like, when you experience Jesus and you experience like that in his life and what he calls you to and what's waiting for you, like, you sell everything, you sell out in life for the things that everyone else says is important, for like the true eternal value, you know?
So good. I love it's so true with Jackson. Like, I what's come from you is like your passion for the gospel and for Jesus, and I love it. What about you too?
Yeah, I think for me, it just has revealed the character and the heart of God for me. I think a lot of people view tragedy and suffering as something that God does to you. And I think I've been able to shift my perspective in that it's something that he's done for me. And I agree with you, JD. Like, I would do anything to have my mom here with me. I would do anything to have my kids know her, but I would not change what happened because of the fruit that it's produced in my life and in me, in the way that I love people now without holding back. And I think when you go through things too, it makes you a more empathetic person. And so I'm able to see people who are going through things, maybe not the loss of a parent, but things like their daughter getting diagnosed with cancer at 5 weeks old. And I don't do it perfectly, but you're able to see that person and allow them to feel seen and know how to care for them in a way that's appropriate. And whether that's just like, hey, I'm a listening ear, hey, here's some coffee, here's a meal, or hey, I'm thinking about you today. And yeah, so I think it's allowed me to love other people better. But I think exactly what Jackson said, it puts life into perspective where it is just a vapor, and what you do here matters. And mostly like the legacy that you leave really matters.
I want to say something to Gene too.
Jackson, God,
sorry.
We're wrapping up, man.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I wondered to myself if I could still feel the same way if it were flipped and it was my son or my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. And so there's no pain like kid pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say I'm very, very sorry for what you've gone through, and Jonathan, and what you're going through. And it doesn't help, I'm sure, for people to just give you the, like the cliche things, but you've been an encouragement, and Jonathan's been an encouragement to me. It's not easy to say the same thing that we would have said about like, oh, I would change that. I wouldn't change it. Like, you're in the thick of it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not expected for you to say that.
Mm-hmm.
You may not feel that way at all.
Absolutely.
And you're not expected to feel that way. And I don't know that everyone that's a Christian would say that.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's 1,000% okay.
So I just want you to know that you don't have to feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's maybe not how you feel. And you may never feel that way because she's a special little girl.
Mm-hmm.
And she's loved by everyone. And I just wanted you to know that y'all are a huge encouragement to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, even those that have walked through grief and are walking through it, like, it's different.
It's so different.
And it's not, in some ways, it just feels like it's not that it's easier or hard. It's just so different.
Yeah.
And when it's your child, like, we know as parents, like, when you have a child, like, your heart grows, like they say, like, it's a love like you've never known. And so I can just imagine that being like, I just want you to know that I don't want anyone to think that this is an equal thing.
No.
Yeah. Oh, I can't imagine.
For me, I just want people to know that I pleaded with God. I was angry at God. Like, I did not hold back those emotions from this season of my life. I questioned why, and I, even when he was answering prayers, like, that I've been praying, like, Lord, I want my in-laws to come to know Jesus. And I was like, but why did you have to use my daughter to get them to go to church? Like, things like that, like this diagnosis. And I was angry. And so I'm not saying that I was literally like, rainbows and sunshine, God's good and faithful. I was angry with him, and I questioned why. And a lot of times at night is when John and I were just like wrestling with a lot of that. I mean, I think that's when we realized that I think we really had a deeper intimacy with Jesus, because we were able to lay a lot of those emotions at his feet, and he met us where we were at. Like, it was never like, why are you questioning me? Like, why are you, like, it was just like, he allows us to have those emotions, that anger, that pain, that questioning his goodness and all of it. And I think because I walked through what we walked through, and obviously I would never wish anybody's kid to have cancer, I still never wish, like, it's the hardest thing as a parent to see your child suffer. Like, you just want nothing more than to take their pain away, or just have the roles flipped. And so this season just brought me to see just a deeper intimacy with Jesus, because he's not just on the sidelines, he's there right with you. And I remember seeing this video of someone who had tragically lost their daughter. And she was like, I had posted it on my social media, and it was just like, he wasn't just in the room with her, he was weeping, and he weeps when we weep. And I was literally, that just like, I've never thought about that, about who God is, that he weeps when we weep, and he mourns when we mourn. And I think that this season has changed my perspective of who God is. I always thought he was this big dad and he's like, it's going to be okay. I'm here. You know, like, you've got this because I'm here with you. And it's like, no, he's in the weeds with you. He understands your anger. He understands your pain because he went through it too. And he's weeping like because of sin, all of this stuff happens. And he didn't want this. This was never his intention with creation, in that he weeps with me. And because of that knowledge, of that intimacy, or because of the season, I've just grown a deeper intimacy with Jesus. And it's just like changed my perspective in so many things. And you know I'm going to be a better mother, better wife, better friend, and because of it. And so
it's so good. I'll just be quick with mine. I think for me, it just brought me low. And it brought me to a place that, like when you're low, like you just see life so differently and you see moments so differently. And I think one of the biggest things that's developed in me is I feel like I'm now, maybe like empathy, I don't know if that's the right word, but it's like, I feel like I'm now able to see people past what they present. Like, I think we're all like pretending a lot. And I feel like I'm able now, without them saying a word, like everyone's trying so hard, like with I'm fine mentality. I'm fine. And I feel like I've just gotten so much more in tune with like the soul level of a person to go like, are you sure? And like speak into like their soul, because I feel like something in my soul is able to like see past what they're presenting.
Yeah, JD totally did that to me in community group, because usually I'm like,
all the time.
He was literally like, at the end of community group, he's just like, how are you, Gene? And I was like, yeah, you know, blah, blah, blah. I was like saying all these things. He's like, you know, you must be so tired. And I was just like, I just literally like the floodgates go. I was like, how'd you know?
I'm like, that perfect skin isn't getting past me. No, I think that's just come from, it's weird. It's like, it's hard to explain. Yeah. It's like when you've had to sit with like the most raw parts of you, it just opens up this ability to see like humans differently. And it's a gift. It really is a gift that the Bible talks about suffering, how in Romans 5, I'll end with this. It says that suffering produces character and character produces hope. And I think that tells me that if that's what suffering produces, then suffering is a gift and it's something to be stewarded. And God, he doesn't just give it to us, or doesn't just allow it. Sorry. He trusts us with it. Like for whatever reason, he looked at us and so many other people that we love and said, yeah, I'm going to trust you with this, and like, don't waste it. Cause I have plans. One day you're going to be sharing it with people. And so, we should wrap up.
Yeah.
I love you guys, and I'm so thankful for your story and the way that you're using it to be a light to so many people. And if you're listening and you're walking through grief or unexpected tragedy, just know that we love you, and like we mean that, and we're with you. And I'm just gonna say a quick prayer. And if you're not a Christian, like that's okay. It's just how we talk to God, our creator, and we believe that he listens. And so we're going to just pray for all of you, and then we'll wrap up the episode. God, I just thank you so much for this time, and I thank you for these stories. Although hard, we see that you have done a great thing and a good thing through them, and you've just produced so much good that we couldn't have done ourselves. I just pray for the person right now who's listening, and maybe they're confused. Maybe they're in that place of being angry. Maybe they're sad. Maybe they're still hurt. Maybe they've never addressed any of these things. And maybe the circumstances they're walking through are the very things that are keeping them from you. And I just pray that right now you would use these words and use our testimonies as a way to just open their eyes to see their pain through a new lens. And that through their tragedy, like allow them to see you and to see that you are near. And I just pray right now they would feel you with them wherever they're listening from. We thank you that you do turn all things that are bad for good, and that you have a greater plan with the hard things in our lives. so much bigger than we ever could have imagined for ourselves. And so we love you. We thank you for everyone listening. In that we pray. Amen. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you on next episode.